Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traven. These are my tomes. It's been almost a month since I last recorded, and it's 30 for 30 manga challenge, which means it was all going so well. It's September 24th. I don't think I've updated the entire month, and it's a random Thursday, but this is when I felt like filming, and this is when I found time, so we're just going to jump into it. This is going to look more like my old clearing the cart videos, because we have so much to get through. So we're just going to jump into it. We'll start with the manga, because it is 30 for 30 this month, where I'm trying to read 30 manga in 30 days. Good, I'm on good pace for that. So we've got a lot of manga to talk about, and then a handful of books that I've read since last we talked. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start with Go-Go Loser Ranger, which I've read the 14 volumes that are out so far, stateside. This one was pretty good. I feel like it's getting a little bit of a bump from me because I am a big fan of Power Rangers and Super Sentai. There is a dramatic shift, I feel, in tone and focus around maybe volume 10 or 11. So the first bulk of the series follows Fighter F as he is trying to fight against this corrupt ranger force. So he's like one of the mooks on the villain team, like a putty or what are they called? Piranatrons, I think was one of the jobber names in one of the series. So he is trying to fight against the corrupt dragon force, and for the first bit of the book, that really is the focus, is his trying to steal their divine artifacts, which are the source of their power, him using his ability to shapeshift, because that's like his one advantage. He's very good at human shapeshifting, and also conveniently exposing himself to either people who are friendly to his cause or die soon thereafter. And I think at some point, maybe the manga writer became aware that this was untenable, really, because there's only so many times you could reveal this identity that you're secretly the enemy to this group and have people be totally on board with it. So around volume 10, it started getting into this like massive fight of the Ranger Force, I think they're called the Dragon Force, versus this these monster sympathizers who had co-opted some of the technology of the Rangers in order to turn themselves into monsters, and have basically been overtaken by these boss monsters that were defeated before, but we kept their DNA or whatever, and so now there's more of these boss monsters running around. And Fighter D, because it was D, not F, I've corrected myself, Fighter D is deciding that he is just on nobody's side, that he's on his own side, and so he's just fighting everybody in this massive melee. That stretch took multiple volumes, and now we're kind of in the post big battle fallout. There's a surprising number of ideas here that seem like they're out of other properties. So we have some scenes very reminiscent of Evangelion. We have some concepts here that are very like high concept and quite deep given the subject matter. But ultimately, this is a comedy. It's billed as an action comedy series, so there's a lot of humor throughout. And I think if you are a fan of Super Sentai or Power Rangers, you'd get a kick out of it. It's definitely a unique spin on that genre and that world building. But I think if you're not interested in that, there's not too much here for you. There is the intrigue and the kind of back and forth, but it's become so muddled and convoluted that I really do feel like my passion for the source material is really what's driving me forward, and not the story itself, despite still consistently giving it 3 or 4 stars. I feel like it is very niche in its subject matter, and it's really probably it's probably only going to appeal to people who are already familiar with this genre and the tropes, especially, like I said, that shift around volume 10 gets really into not aping, but like referencing a lot of the Super Sentai formula and those elements of storytelling. So a good one to pick up if you're a fan of that material, but otherwise, I don't know if you'd really enjoy it. I also read volume 14 of Kaiju number 8, which makes me current with this series as well. Kaiju number 8, I believe, is winding down. I know it ended in Japan. I think that we're going to end up with 16 volumes, maybe 17. So we're nearing the end. We're in the final fight. Not a whole lot happens in this volume, in all honesty. It is gearing up for this last confrontation that will serve as the climax to the series as a whole. But from the beginning to the end of this entire volume, it is not even really a fight getting started. Like, kind of, there's a little bit of clash back and forth, but I don't feel like we've reached the apex of this final fight. And it feels very slow moving. Like we're zeroing in on this last fight. We're doing some more character work and some background work. Some things from earlier in the series are coming back, which is a good thing. But this is another one that I feel like over time it has shifted from kind of a fun, lighthearted comedy series to more of a straightforward action shonen. It's not quite on the level of Ultraman with its lack of prose. Like, Ultraman comics have very little dialogue. The Ultraman manga has very little dialogue. I can get through a volume in like 20 minutes. They read very quickly because there's a lot more focus on the action and the visuals than there is on like dialogue and plot. And I feel like that's kind of where this is heading. There are some hints of some larger world building going on here last minute, and we'll see if those pan out into something more interesting. But as it is now, I'm mostly on the ride because I've been with it so far. I do want to see the end. I do want to get to the conclusion of the series. I think I gave it 3 or 4 stars, probably 4 stars. But a lot of that comes with that understanding that we're talking about the 14th volume of a manga, and I've already got investment in the characters and investment in the world building. So as long as it tells a compelling story and moves that forward, it's already done a lot of the legwork in the earlier volumes. So another one, if you're very much into kaiju, if you like those action shonen stories with a little bit of thought-provoking ideas in it, but largely it's just about the action, the cool kaiju fights. It's worth picking up if you're a fan of that kind of thing. It's honestly been a really great month for catching up with a lot of my manga series, and I even managed to finish a couple of series. I closed out a couple. I read through the very last Cat Gamer. I don't think I have that over here. But I did read through the last Cat Gamer. This is a really super cute series about a woman who finishes her work on time every day, right on time, doesn't do any overtime, which is overtime is kind of like the expected thing to do in Japan, but she clocks out right when her shift ends. She goes home, she plays video games. Everyone thinks that she's like just on top of it, so she doesn't have to bring any work home, but the reason why she's doing it because she's a massive gamer. And then one day someone comes by with a cat in a box that was left, I think, at the offices, and she, for some reason, says that she'll take it. And so it's all about the adventure of her becoming a cat parent, getting a second cat, and a lot of it is making equivalences with like gaming mechanics and raising cats, and it's a lot of fun. It's super cute. You get some chapters or some like endings of chapters that have the cat's perspective, which is a lot of fun. It's just a really good lighthearted series. Also a short series. The mangaka is going to be releasing a new series called Cat Crazy, and I'm hoping that some of the characters from this one make return appearances, because it would be really fun. But I do think that it wrapped up very nicely. It was very heartwarming ending, and then did the like comedy rug pull at the very end, which was still funny and still entertaining. I think it's a great series if you're a gamer, if you are a pet owner, if you just like slice of life and, you know, funny beats between different characters. It's a lot of fun. I would highly recommend it. Another one that I got caught up with and actually finished was Alice in Borderland. So I got volumes 7, 8, and 9. And this finishes up the series, so I'm completely done with Alice in Borderland. And I feel like it ended, I want to say I gave the last one 5 stars. I might have. It was 4 or 5 stars. This one's another one that's been consistently really good. I like the different challenges they have. I really enjoy trying to figure out the puzzle of each of the games they have to play. So if you're not familiar with Alice in Borderland, a bunch of teenagers, a group of like 3 teenagers, I think, initially are shifted off into this alternate world, Tokyo, where they have to fight. They have to play in these games to earn visas to stay longer in Borderland, which is what it's called, or else they will die. A laser comes down from the sky and kills them. So they have to participate in these different challenges, and I felt like the end was really intriguing. Like, the game was so much simpler on the surface. It didn't have a lot of complicated rules. There wasn't like a big to-do about trying to figure out how to solve it. It was a lot more psychological, which made a lot of sense. And it did really bring some of the key moments in the character development of Arisu, our main character. It brought a lot of those key moments back into focus. And I felt like it ended on a satisfying note. I don't think there was ever going to be any explanation of Borderland that was going to be 100% satisfying, but you do get an answer for what it is, in kind of a vague sense. It's not anything that is dwelt upon, and I feel like it did end on a bit of a note of hope, and like things would get better. So yeah, I really did enjoy it. The games are all fun. They're all there aren't any that I can think of that the rules just flat out didn't work. They did have some explanation as to why some games seem like they're solvable without anybody getting hurt, and other games are not. And there was where I left off. So I think was 7 where I picked up again. I don't think it was. I think it might have been here. It might have been volume 7. Right around here, there's a big shift in the focus of the book as well, where they go from competing with other people to competing with like the people behind the games, which I thought was a good escalation of the story, and led to some really interesting moments. There were some times in here where they have very wild solutions to coming out on top in the games, and I love to see that in this type of story. So yeah, check it out. Alice in Borderland, a lot of fun. Also, a Netflix series, live action. From what I saw of it, fairly it looked like a fairly faithful adaptation. So I'm wanting to go back and look at it. Maybe I'll do some video comparing and contrasting the two. But from what I saw, I really did feel like it was accurately depicting the events of the book. So something else to check out. I read Yaiba Samurai Legend. Now this is from Gosho Aoyama, the same creator or the same writer behind Case Closed, or Detective Conan, if you will. And I believe this is an earlier work from him. It is definitely dated. Like, I get a very nostalgic feeling reading it. It does feel very... I believe this is like late 80s, early 90s, I think is when this was originally published. And it definitely has that feel of a classic story, both good and bad. There's a lot of overt sexism in here. And the villain is a bad guy for very tenuous and not very deep reasons. But it was fun, and it was nice having that feeling of reading something from my childhood. This is an omnibus edition. It's all about Yaiba, who is this boy who was raised by what seems to be like a sword master, like a kendo expert in the woods. And so like he knows about fighting with swords really well, and he's just kind of going and like he gets into school by beating the kendo teacher and then beating one of his students, and then there's this whole thing with these cursed swords, and that's kind of where it left off. But it has the general, it seems like the general story loop is going to be that this evil character, who's again is only evil because he picked up this cursed sword and it overtook his personality, but he's going to be sending out different like minions to try to stop Yaiba, and then Yaiba's going to beat them and in some cases befriend them, because I'm pretty sure the first one that was sent out to him by now is essentially a reluctant ally. Again, like simple fun, very nostalgic feeling, nothing mind-blowing. I think 3 stars is a good place to put this. Good, nothing that is like transcendent or anything like that, but if you just want like that classic manga feeling, if you're of a certain age and you want that classic manga feeling, I think this is a good pickup. I read through The Summer Hikaru Died #1. Now, when I read a synopsis of this, I'm not sure where I read it, but I thought that the crux of the story was going to be that this boy thought that his friend was dead and that he had been replaced by like a body snatcher, but he didn't have like proof of this, and it was going to be like is his friend really gone, or is he just acting weird and it is really okay, and are we getting a character perspective that is maybe incomplete or flawed? No, absolutely not. This guy 100% a monster. Like right out of the gate, he confronts him and says like, hey, like what happened to my friend? And he immediately turns into this like half shadow beast monster thing and is like, how did you figure it out? And rather than like become antagonistic, the guy's just like, oh yeah, it's fine, I'm just curious about it, and it's a lot less confrontational than I thought it would be, like to find out that your friend was dead. Interesting thing beyond just like this character, this friend has definitely been taken over by some sort of body snatcher out of the deep woods, is that this is used as a vehicle for some rather overt sexual tension between the two boys. Like, at first I thought, are they talking about caring about each other in more of like a friend way? But there are scenes in here that are definitely like giving that sense that we're using this as a vehicle to explore like LGBTQ plus ideas between these two characters. I won't go into more detail because I think it is worth reading, and I think it's definitely a unique view, a unique spin on like a body snatcher kind of story. I've not seen anything like it. I'm definitely interested in reading more. I'm curious about the longevity of it. Like, I know it's out to volume 4 in the States, and I'm sure there's more. But I'm just not sure. This is one of those that I'm not sure how far you can extend out the story before maybe it grows a little stale. So I'm curious how the story develops and how this relationship between the two is going to maybe get more complicated, or if some outside influence is going to drive the plot a little bit more forward. But I'm definitely interested. I think it's an intriguing series. I think you should check it out if you're a fan of horror, especially horror that is used in the service of exploring those types of topics. I think it's a good pick, and I can see why it has the popularity that it does. The visuals are very clean and picturesque, and when it's just like them at the countryside, and then it can also turn into something very grotesque and something very ominous and threatening as well. I read through volumes 108 and 109 of One Piece, which gets me current with One Piece as well. This is largely the backstory of Bartholomew Kuma and Jules Bonnie, who are characters that were introduced way back in like volume 50-ish, a little bit before 50, I want to say, because I feel like they were before they were before Amazon Lily, they were before all the time skip stuff, before the Paramount War. So, like, characters that have been around for a long time and have not been the focus of much attention, and they're going into this backstory. And I'd already heard through like the fandom about these chapters and about how emotional they were, and for such a minor character that you wouldn't think would have a big impact on the story at large, Oda still finds a way to make it very poignant and very sad and also important to the plot. But sad in a way that we haven't seen before. So you know when you see a flashback in One Piece that it's going to be some sort of trauma dumping thing. It did not disappoint. It was very sad. I definitely, I don't know if I cried, but it was definitely sad. And meanwhile, in the current events of the story, we have this conflict, this major conflict that's like keeps building and building and building, and you know that it's gonna break at some point. So you've got some of the biggest players on the planet all converging on this island. You've got a number of Marines there. You've got CP9, which is like their secret police. We've got one of the 5 elders, who are like the leaders of the world government, which is this corrupt organization. It's like I feel like it's going to be the major antagonists of the entire comic. And you have all these major characters that you've seen before. You've got characters that have been talked about since like so long in the past, with Dr. Vegapunk, who was, I want to say, mentioned way back in an arc. I want to say that was like Thriller Bark was one of the first times that he was mentioned, and now we're getting to see him. All these characters that we've kind of built up to these mythical proportions, and it's really satisfying to see them all come to a head. It's also very interesting to see Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats, how much they've grown, and see them try to deal with what is like the biggest crisis they've ever found themselves in. It's escalated in a way that is very satisfying, and I feel like has mostly made sense. There are some definite questions given some recent developments with Luffy about like why the government didn't do more to stop him early on in his career. But generally, it's a lot of fun. I love the characters. These get 5 stars for me. But again, I'm 108 volumes in to One Piece. Now 109 volumes into One Piece. Of course, I'm going to be invested. Of course, I'm going to love the characters, and of course, I'm here for the story. This one, these two comics, very dense with dialogue. This is a lore heavy and like world building heavy arc. So they took a considerable amount of time to get through because there's a lot of dialogue. I know some people don't like that and they want to see more of those like action beats and more of the like fighting, and they don't want people to talk so much. But like, man, if it's Oda and it's the One Piece world, I just want to know everything and get all the characters and all the world building. It's all coming together so beautifully. I absolutely love this series. Everybody should read it. It's great. My favorite piece of media. Full stop. Love One Piece. Check it out. I read through my 3 volumes of Haikyuu, which is a manga about playing volleyball. I am a fan of sports manga in general. I really liked Ice Shield 21. There's a Kendo one that I was reading for a while. I've watched through Hajime no Ippo, which is about boxing, and a lot of them deal with team sports and set up a scenario where you've got a couple of players who just synergize really well together, and it's their journey to becoming better players by recognizing the strengths and how they can work together. And that is very much true in this book as well. So we've got Hinata and Kageyama. Kageyama is the kind of young prodigy genius volleyball player. He was called the Little Prince because he was like very arrogant and very like full of himself and thought he could carry a whole team. And then Hinata here is just very passionate about the game, but in the junior high he didn't actually have a team. He had to like scrape together this makeshift team out of like people he could coerce and like volunteer into it. They played one game against Kageyama's team and were defeated, of course. But now they're at the same high school, and they've learned over the course of these first couple of volumes that because Kageyama is able to put the ball anywhere he wants, he has a very good field sense, like a very good court presence. He knows where everybody is. He can predict where Hinata is going to jump. Hinata can just go jump and do his thing. He does it with his eyes closed a couple of times, which I think is really funny. And Kageyama will put it up right where he needs it to be. It has started off in the way that most of these comics do, where they present them as this unstoppable force within very narrow parameters. They play a 3-on-3 match, and there's not a whole lot the other team can do to stop them. But then, of course, they go against like an actual team, and we learn gradually like there's more to setting. There's more to volleyball than just setting and spiking. The other team's able to score off of serves and take advantage of like who their weakest players are in serving or receiving. We've expanded the team a little bit. We've gotten some players back who were really good but reluctant. All very standard sports manga elements, but I think that they are executed very well in Haikyuu, and I can see why it gained the popularity it did. I think the anime, from the clips I've seen, also just looks really beautiful, so I think that also played a role in its popularity. I was talking with one of my students, and it's like one of her points of pride, that one of the things she's very happy about is that she has the full 45 issue run of Haikyuu. And I think I'm gonna start building toward that. Like, I want to continue this story. I really did enjoy jumping back into this world and kind of rereading, because these were all rereads. It was fun rereading it and revisiting this world, and I think I want to continue like watching this team grow and get to some actual tournament action where we can do some like individual character focus, which tends to be, again, the way that these story loops go. So one that I'm definitely going to check out more of in the future. And I think we're down to my last manga, which is Gaea-Tima, the Gigantis. Gigantis. This is another kaiju manga. Can you tell what my preference and bias is when it comes to what I want to pick up and read about? So this is the story of a town that was devastated by a kaiju, and then because of the kaiju's influence, it becomes prosperous. The town becomes prosperous, and they start selling merchandise of the kaiju, and that gets them money as well. So there's a lot of like touristy business, and then it comes back, and we learn that it has a connection to the character here on the front. There's a bond they share that you might not expect to see at the beginning, and it was at times very funny, and I think honestly more poignant than I thought a comic about a giant monster was going to be. I think that it has broader appeal because it's not really relying on like tropey jokes. The kaiju here is serving more as the original Godzilla, as a metaphor for some other things going on in the lives of these characters, and there are very complicated feelings around the monster because it did destroy the village, but it's also the reason why the village is so prosperous now. So there's like this love-hate relationship between the townsfolk and the kaiju. There's also just some real solid kaiju fighting action in this one as well. So I think it kind of serves both purposes in being spectacle and having the fun of just a kaiju fight and all the like gory violence that you would expect to see from like a Gamera film, like what was the one with Giron, where he's like chopping up the monster with his giant machete head. You get that spectacle and that violence, but then you also have a story that I feel is very grounded and is going to be one about grief and loss. And if we always have to meet violence with violence, that's what the back is talking about here. Is humanity capable of responding to violence with anything other than more violence? And so, yeah, I think it did an excellent job of balancing those different elements, and it was a lot of fun, and not something I'd ever heard of. I picked it up because I thought the cover looked cool, and so delightfully surprised to find it to be so good as it is. Yeah, pick it up. It's good. I've read 3 books since I last checked in. The first is My Friends by Frederick Bachman, and this one was, so good. This might be my book of the year right now. Probably the best thing I've read. It has all the charm of Anxious People, which is the last Frederick Bachman I read. It's also about art, and it's about family, and it's about found family. It's about friendships. It's about parenting. and loss and grief and all these really heavy topics, but done in a way that is heightened. We still have that like narrator character that Frederick Bachman has such a strong voice when he's using the third person omniscient, that the narrator becomes a character within the story and is often commenting on the action in very funny ways. There's a levity to it that I find very endearing given the tragic things that happen over the course of the book. I also really like the characters here. I don't feel like it's realistic. It does take a bit of suspension of disbelief because the characters are just tuned up a little bit too clever, a little bit too quick with a quip, a little too larger than life is not the right word, because it's not like they're like mythical figures or anything like that, but they just feel like slightly heightened from reality. And I think that really helps sell this message of art and its impact on us. So this one's a story about stories where this girl who inherits a painting from the artist is traveling with one of the artist's friends that he grew up with, and he's gradually telling her the story of the painting and the story of their early life and where everybody ended up. And through that they connect, and through that they grow, and through that the protagonist gains opportunities that she wouldn't have otherwise had. And it's just really beautiful, and I really loved it, and I think that you should read it. I read Authority Essays, which is a series of essays. These range from like literary criticism to more of social criticism, and also a lot of takedown pieces of different artists. So I'm kind of torn on this one. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars, and the reason why is because there were a handful of the essays that I really liked, and I enjoyed being back in that space of like academic writing, the kinds of things I would do as an undergrad in college, in writing up papers about film and looking at the details and the minutia of the framing and the way that a scene is put together, and what does it tell you about the artist and the director as the author of a piece, and what are they trying to say with their work. And there were a few pieces in here that were doing that, especially early on. There was one about Yellow Jackets that I found very interesting because it was exploring this back and forth nature of the storytelling. And like I said, a few others at the beginning. There was also an essay in the middle called Authority, the title essay, and it was about the concept of authority and what does authority really mean, and how has it evolved over time, and where does authority lie, where does society invest authority now versus where did it invest authority in the past. I thought that one was also a very intriguing listen, but I feel like the author is just a thoroughly unlikable person. I don't care for them. They seem to like revel in these takedown pieces. They seem to really enjoy like dunking on a lot of art, and it just seems like the stereotypical critic archetype of just this person who sits back and like hates everything and is very negative. I did enjoy being back in that academic space for a while and hearing someone speak critically on different topics, but I did not enjoy the level of cynicism on display here. And so because of that, I don't want to listen to it again. I would not. I don't think I'm going to pick anything else up by this writer, and I probably wouldn't recommend it to anybody except for people who are or have a vested interest in the subject matter, and then I would only recommend the independent articles in there and not the book as a whole. So that's where I wound up on it. Again, fun to be back in that headspace, but just did not care for the author's personality and the way that they discussed media, social, political, any kind of criticism that they had was too biting and too negative for my taste. And finally, I read Senlin Ascends, which is the first book in the Tower of Babel series. This follows Senlin, who is a headmaster at a school. He's going on his honeymoon with his wife to this mythical Tower of Babel, this huge tower that he believes is like the center of culture. Within hours of arriving, possibly minutes, he's lost his wife in a crowded market, and his entire drive from that point forward is to try to find her. And as he does, he learns more and more about the tower as he gets higher and higher up in its rings, in its floors, and comes to find that it is not the paradise that he assumed it was. It's not even really the recreational and like pleasure palace it puts on a front to be. So within the first couple of floors, you can do things like you can go on these beer merry-go-rounds where you pedal, and the more you pedal, the more beer flows out of it. And then once you've pedaled for a while, you're like winding these gears, and then they release and they like shoot people out, and everybody has a really fun time with it, apparently. And then on the next floor up, there is a place where you take part in a play where you're assigned a role, and regardless of what your role is, there's this clause about stoking the fires, and so he's learning as he's going that these are the tower itself is a giant engine, and he's wondering what it's powering. But everybody on the tower is so corrupt and so untrustworthy. There's this running theme of like, you don't have friends in the tower. This is part of my 10 series to read for 2025. I'm on. I think this marks my 5th one that I've gone through, so I'm a little bit behind. But I will say, I think this is probably the one that I'm most likely to continue reading and like to pick up quickly once I've worked through the others, because it was not only very intriguing and well written, but I feel like it was also just a lot of fun and didn't feel like a slog getting through it. It wasn't a massive book. It wasn't overly detailed or complicated. It was just a fun adventure with enough layer and nuance and an interesting lead character for this type of story to keep me interested and to make me want to read the next one. So it's a 4-book series. I'll definitely pick up more in the future, but I've got, again, 6 series that I'm still looking at. Right now, I'm reading through Red Rising. So we'll go ahead and just transition into like what's next. What else do I have to read? So right now I'm listening to the audiobook for Red Rising. I'm reading Catabasis, which is part of my 25 for 2025, and I've got some more manga to look at. I want to go back and catch up on Blue Lock, I would like to catch up on Spy Family, and I have the Madoka Magica Omnibus that I picked up just the other day. So those are some things that I'll be looking for in the near future. Whenever next I decide to grace the internet with my presence and talk about what I've been reading lately. As always, I hope your reading journey is going well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow this corner of our booktube community. Let me know down in the comments, what are you reading? Are you taking part in 30 and 30? What manga do you enjoy reading? Have you read anything that was on my massive list of manga for this month? Love to hear from you guys and to have that chance to interact and talk about books. Yeah, but I think that's going to do it for me today. Until the next one, take care.